Hello and welcome to the ATC24 Guide to the Rules. My name is MJ and I'm going to be guiding you through what is, in all fairness, a very long rules channel, but hopefully after this video you will be feeling a bit more confident about all the rules that we have here in order to ensure that we have a non-stop, semi-realistic ATC roleplay that runs 24/7. Before we start, I should point out that the rules do on occasion get updated, so monitor ATC24 announcements for any rule changes, and just that this video might not be entirely up to date. So be wary. And the second thing is that if you see another user breaking these rules on the server, then you know what you need to do. Go to ATC24 reports, hit the red button, fill out some information, provide some evidence, and we will get on that ASAP. So without further ado, we're going to get into our first section here, which is the general rules. First things first, users must be 13 years or older to participate in ATC24. If you didn't know this, well, you should. It's part of Discord Terms of Service. If you are not 13 years old yet, then you shouldn't be on Discord, and therefore you cannot play ATC24, and we will ban those who are under the age of 13. Secondly, users must have 60 minutes of flight time on the game, so that's 60-minute flight time in PTFS, not in any particular server, just public servers. You need to have 60 minutes. This is to reduce trollers, as it stops trollers just being able to create new Roblox accounts to rejoin after being banned on the Roblox server, because they have to get 60 minutes on each account before they can use the link again. Moving on, another thing about the link is that you cannot share it to anyone outside of ATC24 or without the ATC24 role. So the link is located in these channels here, and as you can see, it's not even visible, it's in a button, so you would have to click copy now and then send it to someone, but you shouldn't, because ATC24 is only available to those with the ATC24 role, because those are the people who have passed the application to enter the server. If you do share it to someone else outside of the ATC24, who doesn't have the ATC24 role, that is going to be a strike at the very least, but easily a ban, so don't. It's very easy not to, so don't. Whilst participating in ATC24, you must have a headset or speakers. Basically, you must be able to hear the VCs, no matter who you are, pilot or controller, you must be able to hear the VCs. If you do not have a microphone, you may use Roblox chat. That is only applicable to pilots. If you are a pilot, if you are a pilot and you do not have a microphone, you may use Roblox chat. On the other hand, if you are an air traffic controller, you must have a microphone and you must be able to talk in the VCs. You can't control using Roblox chat. Whilst on the server, you must have Roblox chat open at all times. For controllers, this is so they can see pilots who might be requesting stuff in chat, and for everyone in general, it's because staff might be trying to contact you in chat, in private messages, or just trying to contact everyone, so as to not interrupt the VCs with staff requests and stuff. If you have excessive background noise, you will be given the push-to-talk role. If you don't know what push-to-talk is, you need to come down here to your user settings, click that, and go down to voice and video. From there you can select push-to-talk and set a keybind. What this does, for me, I have this set as a little button on the side of my mouse. When I press it, my microphone in the voice channel will turn on and I can speak to everyone in the voice channel. When I release it, my microphone mutes automatically, so no one else can hear any background noise that I might have. And that way the VCs remain nice and clutter-free, and everyone can request when they need to. What's next? All of the airport voice channels in this category represent tower, approach, departure, ground, and clearance delivery of the given airspace. You don't need to know what all of those mean. Put simply, it's basically, for every airport, you have one controller who is doing everything for that airport. The only exception are the internationals, which have a ground VC, and we'll come on to that later when we get into the air traffic control section. So don't worry about that for now, but it's one controller per airport. The two military bases on the server are Airbase Gary and RAF Scampton, so everything else is considered a civilian airport. Ooh, oh no. Considered a civilian airport apart from these two. So if the phrase military bases is referenced later in the rules, as it will be, hint, it is talking about Airbase Gary and RAF Scampton only. You must remain in the appropriate VC for the airspace you're in. If you're on the ground at Rockford, you must be in Rockford or Rockford ground, depending on what is open. We'll come on to that soon. If you are flying over St Bartholomew, you must be in the St Bartholomew VC. If you are on approach to Perth, you must be in the Perth VC, etc., etc. That's our first section done, guys. We're now moving on to the trolling. So this is a list of all the things that you cannot do. They are actions that shouldn't be performed in ATC24, and they will result in a kick from the Roblox server, and then you'll be warned in the Discord server. We'll just go over what that means now. So you get warned once, that's called your strike 1. Strike 1, that's basically a verbal. Strike 2, another verbal. Strike 3, you get 3 warnings, and then on the strike 3 you get a 30-day ban. After that 30 days is up, you can rejoin the Discord server and then wait 10 days to apply, or boost the server and apply. If you then break the rules one more time after that, you will get your 4th and final modlog, and you will get a permanent ban from ATC24. This hasn't been updated recently. There are appeals for the 4th modlog and for the temporary ban on the 3rd modlog. However, the appeal system is it should only be used for if you feel you have been wrongfully warned. So what it's not for is for saying, oh, I'm really sorry, it won't happen again. You'll just be denied. The only thing the appeal system should be used for is if you have evidence that one of the modlogs against you did not happen. That's the only way a ban will get repealed. So, trolling actions. First one up, spawning, taking off, or landing military aircraft at civilian airports. What it means by modern military aircraft, specifically jet military aircraft. If you are in a military aircraft and it has a jet, not propellers, then you cannot land at civilian airports. You can only land at air bases. The two military bases in PTFS are Airbase Gary and RAF Scampton. The only place where modern military jets can land is Airbase Gary and RAF Scampton. You cannot taxi, take off, or land without ATC approval unless there is no ATC at the airport, in which case you report your movements to the other aircraft on the frequency to ensure there are no collisions. Intentionally interrupting the VCs is a no-no. That will be a warning, so that can be stuff like playing music over your microphone, shouting, talking about stuff that's nothing to do with comms, that sort of thing. Unrealistic flight formations, so two Boeing 747s flying together, that would be unrealistic, for example. Unrealistic flight plans, i.e. transporting drugs. This has been updated recently as well. You shouldn't be including cargo type on your flight plans. That's just not appropriate. And not needed, really, because you can't change your cargo type in PTFS. Similarly, you cannot... Forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, so unrealistic flight plans, that includes unrealistic and inappropriate call signs. For example, Delta India Kilo Charlie. I got that the wrong way around. Delta India Charlie Kilo will not be appreciated. It's not allowed. Ditching aircraft in the water, so this is performing a water landing or anything of the sort, is not allowed. If you need to leave the server at any point for whatever reason and you're in the air flying, just leave, it's fine. Don't do a water landing. Similarly, don't recreate real-life aviation accidents or tragedies, because what's wrong with you. Buzzing an active tower, airspace, or other aircraft. So if you're not familiar with the term buzzing, it means flying close to. You may be familiar from Top Gun of him buzzing the tower. Similarly, buzzing other aircraft, so flying too close to other aircraft, or buzzing an airspace, flying too close to the airport without permission is not allowed. Spawning, taking off, or landing on a HMS Queen Elizabeth. So you may be confused as to why HMS Queen Elizabeth, which is the aircraft carrier on the server, isn't included in the military bases. That's because HMS Queen Elizabeth is banned on ATC24. There were two reasons why this was done. Number one, it was never used realistically because nobody on the server knows proper carrier ops, or at least not enough people to run it correctly. And secondly, as soon as we opened it, the entire server just became flooded with people doing bad carrier ops, and no one else could do anything else. If you want to do carrier ops, there are plenty of military roleplay servers out there. Check PTC advertisements in the main server for those. Spawning and using the following aircraft in the random category is not allowed. So the Walrus is banned from the server, the Santa Sled banned from the server, hot air balloon banned from the server, the Wright Flyer is banned from the server, the UFO is banned from the server, and the Derek's Creation is banned from the server. So these three down here and these two up here are obviously banned because they're not realistic aircraft. The Wright Flyer is banned because it doesn't fly anymore, it's very slow, just gets in the way. The hot air balloon is banned because it goes 1,000 knots, which obviously is not realistic. So spawning these as well as using them is not allowed. So if you spawn them and sit in them, you can get a strike for that, so just don't spawn them. Unrealistic maneuvers in an aircraft, for example, barrel rolls in an airliner it gives there, is not allowed. You are allowed to do barrel rolls in aircraft that can do barrel rolls, for example, the Extra 300 or a military aircraft, but do these at appropriate times. So not when you're landing or approaching to landing, not after you've just taken off. Just be sensible. As staff, we're not looking to kick you and strike you. We get no joy out of it, but we will if you're not being sensible. So just be sensible and we will do the same. Landing unrealistically large aircraft at small airports. The rule for this is if you can spawn an aircraft at an airport, then you can land that aircraft at an airport. Take St. Bartholomew for example. The largest aircraft you can spawn at St. Bartholomew is the CRJ-700. So the largest aircraft you can land at St. Bartholomew is the CRJ-700. An example of an aircraft that is too large for St. Bartholomew would be the Boeing 747, the Airbus A380, or literally anything that is larger than a CRJ-700. Not using ground vehicles for its intended purposes. I don't want to. Excuse me. For its intended purposes. This includes, but is not limited to, driving them on public roads or... I don't even know what. Oh yeah, that was one we had a while back. Drag racing ground crew vehicles on the runways. Just use a public server for that if you really feel the need to drag race two vehicles with the exact same top speed. But yeah, go nuts on a public server. Spawning and using the Coast Guard boat. This one might seem a bit weird, but as water ditching isn't allowed, there's no need for the boat. Also, this is pilot training flight simulator, not pilot training boat simulator, so we're not going to be doing that on here. Also, it's air traffic control 24, not boat traffic control 24. Anyway, flight minute farming. If you don't know what that is, it's where people take off and go into the air and then they leave their game. Sorry, they leave their keyboard. They go away from their keyboard to get flight minutes. This isn't allowed on ATC24 because it's way easier on a public server. Why would you not go to a public server? Unrealistic, inappropriate call signs, we covered that up there. Delta India Charlie Kilo, not appreciated, not allowed. Wing walking, if you don't know what this is, it's where people stand on an aircraft's wings, whether in the air or on the ground, is not allowed. Some confusion recently is to do with marshallers who stand at the end of the wings of very large aircraft as they are entering and exiting the ramp to make sure they don't collide with other aircraft. That is fine if you really want to take your ground crewing to that level, but wing walking on top of the wing, not allowed. And finally, in this section, the use of flares is not allowed. So that's flares for military aircraft. If you use them and a moderator sees you, that will be a strike. Very easy way to get striked, but also a very easy way to avoid it is just not using flares. So there we are. The next section is being an air traffic controller. If an airspace is uncontrolled, you can become an ATC. If there's no one there in the tower, it's free, you can have it. If an airspace is already controlled, you cannot take over. Staff withhold the right to dismiss an air traffic controller if we deem them not fit to control. Basically, if you're new to air traffic controlling, don't control Rockford at rush hour, because everyone's going to be annoyed at you because you'll be holding up traffic, and if it gets so bad, then staff will have to remove you because people will just be queuing up and nothing will be going on. As an air traffic controller, you are not allowed to override the rules under any circumstances. We see this a lot in ATCs, which, if you're not aware, is basically the controller information to give out to all the pilots at once. So it gives the active runways and stuff like that. We see it in ATCs quite a lot, people allowing military jets at civilian airports, people not allowing VFR aircraft at particular airports. That's not allowed as a controller. You have to follow these rules just like everyone else, and you can't change them for particular airports. You're not allowed to ban certain aircraft or certain people. As an air traffic controller, you are not allowed to change your call sign or change how you refer to the airport. If you are controlling Rockford, you are Rockford Tower, nothing else. So this is the controller's call sign, what they are called over the frequency. For example, if you're Rockford Tower, you couldn't just say, actually no, I'm Heathrow Tower. Just to make it simple for everyone, you must use the in-game name of the airport you're at for your call sign. You can't just turn it into Heathrow or JFK, whatever you want. As an air traffic controller, you must make a reasonable effort to fill all requests an aircraft may make, unless an aircraft makes an unreasonable request or performs in an unreasonable way. Kind of hard to explain this one, but yeah. So, if a pilot who is using Roblox chat to request stuff is making a request in a completely normal way, the controller is not allowed to, say, deny them because they're in chat. The controller must try and clear everyone unless the pilot is behaving in an unreasonable way or making an unreasonable request, such as VFR in an airliner, which isn't allowed. We'll go on to that, it's down there, but it's not allowed. As an air traffic controller, you must follow the ATC information format pinned in ATC 1 and 2. There is some leeway in that, but as much as possible try and stick to the format, which you can find up here in pinned messages. And we can scroll down to the bottom. There is your format there, and you can fill in all the information. And if we go back to controlling, that's where we are. Okay, so now we're moving on to those ground VCs that we saw earlier, which are on all the big airports. So here's Rockford Ground. It's not open right now, but there we are. So some airports have their own ground VCs. They have the following rules. Ground should only be opened if the tower for particular airports allows it to be open. So there must be an active tower before ground is open. So if there is a controller at Rockford, if there is one controller at Rockford, it will always be in the main VC. It will be the tower controller. If there are two controllers at Rockford, the person who controls Rockford Ground must first get permission from the Rockford Tower controller, who should already be online, to open up Rockford Ground. And what is Rockford Ground? Well, Ground is the controller who will be giving out the IFRs and VFRs. Oh, sorry, that's incorrect. The ground controller is the person who will be giving out pushback clearances and taxi clearances to aircraft. After that's done, they will tell them to contact the tower. When they're holding short of the runway, the tower will then give them permission to cross the runway or permission to take off or whatever. So tower handles everything down to the runways, ground handles everything off the runways. There we go. And the ground must follow tower instructions. The tower is in charge of the airport. And the tower can also decide whether or not clearance delivery, which is the person who clears IFR and VFR flight plans, should be handled by ground or tower. Most of the time this will be handled by ground. It's very rare that it's handled by tower. So anything relating to runways, crossing, lining up, landing, takeoffs are handled by the tower, as we said before. When the previous controller from an airport leaves, the controller may decide who will be controlling next. So if say someone's controlling Rockford and you want to control Rockford next, what you do is you ask them, preferably in private messages, very, very nicely, if you can take over when they're done. If they say yes, then when they're going off, they can say, oh, so-and-so is going to take over after me. And then when they leave, you post your ATIS and then you start controlling. If the controller who's on there before doesn't have a preference as to who takes over from them, the first person to post an ATIS after that controller leaves may take the spot. So it's nothing to do with who's in the tower, but you must be in-game and you must have posted an ATIS. You are not allowed to post an ATIS before that person leaves, though, because that just confuses people as to which ATIS is in use. If there are two users arguing for tower and disrupting communications, both may receive a strike because it's often unclear. So if you are arguing with someone, just either both of you decide on one person quickly and without disrupting the VC, or both say, oh, I'm just not going to control and we'll let someone else do it because we can't decide. That would be the sensible thing to do. Right, we're quite a long way in now, but we are getting to the latter stages. As I said, quite complicated rules, but once you wrap your head around them, you'll be fine. So I'm now moving on to the being a pilot section. So this is all about flight plans, this first bit. When finding a flight plan, you must stick to the formats. As we've seen before, the format is up in pins, and then it's right at the top as well as down at the bottom. So you fill that in with all the relevant information before you embark on your flight. When you must not use code blocks, which, if you're not aware, code blocks are these things. So you're not allowed to make an ATIS like this. Oh, goodness me, it's taking a while. You're not allowed to make an ATIS like that. That is not allowed. And you're not allowed to use any exuberant special characters. So lots of bolding, lots of italics, just that sort of stuff just isn't needed. You must file a flight plan under the following circumstances. So this is when you need to file a flight plan. So IFR flight plans, instrument flight rules are required for any international flight between islands. So if you are flying from Rockford to Perth, that is an international flight, and you must file an IFR, Rockford to Bartholomew, international flight. IFR flight plans are required for any airliner or cargo aircraft regardless of destination. So if you are flying an airliner or a cargo, even if you're only doing a domestic hop, which for example would be Rockford to Mellor, you still have to file IFR if you're in an airliner or cargo aircraft. IFR flight plans are required for any modern military formation. So even if you are doing a modern military formation and you're flying from Scampton to Scampton, so it's not an IFR, you still have, so it's not an international flight, you still have to file IFR. You can file IFR or VFR for any other form of formation flying, for example, two old military prop aircraft. You could file a VFR flight plan for formation flights with those. IFR or VFR flight plans are required for any other modern or military operation. So if you're Scampton to Scampton in a modern military jet by yourself, then you can file VFR. IFR or VFR flight plans are required if arriving or departing any international airport. So even if you're a little VFR aircraft at Rockford, you still have to file a flight plan, just so the controller knows what's going on. And VFR flight plans are encouraged for any other sort of flight operation, but I think we've covered them all there. If you are flying in a formation, everyone in said formation must file a flight plan. A single person can't file for the entire formation. So every aircraft in the formation needs a separate flight plan, and it needs to be filed by them, and then they all have to be cleared by a controller. Or Unicom doesn't have to be cleared, but you still need flight plans. When wanting an IFR or VFR, you must read the airport's current ATIS before requesting it, so you know all the information about that airport. The Air Force One is not allowed unless the controller at the departing and arriving airport grants you clearance to do so. So before you request IFR, you must make sure that the place you are departing from and the place you are arriving at, making sure both controllers are okay with an Air Force One there. If there is a controller change, the new controller has the right to refuse your landing. So if you're in the air and your arrival controller changes, they can say, no, I don't want you here. That's fine. The same rule applies for formation flights. If there are escorts with a Air Force One roleplay, so F-18s or what, escorting the Air Force One, they also have to file a flight plan. It has to be IFR because it's a modern military formation. So they spawn, take off and land at a designated military base, and they rendezvous in air. They also cannot land at the civilian airport where Air Force One is landing. So let me give you an example scenario. Air Force One is flying from Rockford to Tokyo. Its escorts will spawn in at Gary after Air Force One is taken off from Rockford. The escorts will take off from Gary and they will join up with Air Force One in midair. They will then escort Air Force One into the Tokyo airspace. Once Air Force One is suitably on the approach, the escorts will break off and will fly back to Gary and then land there. Or if they wanted, they could fly to Scampton and land there, as long as they don't land at a civilian airport. Next section, military aircraft. It's a short one. Modern or military jets, so ones without propellers, are not allowed at any civilian airports, and a controller can't overrule this. So as we said, modern or old military jets can only go at Scampton and Gary. You are not allowed to intercept an aircraft under any circumstances. And formation flights, you are not allowed to intercept an aircraft under any circumstances. And escorting is not allowed with the exception of Air Force One. Air Force One is the only aircraft that can be escorted by military jets. And we've just been over that up there. So you're not allowed to intercept, so you're not allowed to take off and start a formation flight with the random aircraft. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to take off and escort an Air Force One without the Air Force One and controller knowing what you're doing, because that would be counted as an intercept, not an escort. The only old military propeller aircraft may land at civilian airports, so propeller military are fine at all airports. They're allowed at air bases and at civilian airports. There's the list of old propeller military are here if you wish to read them. Basically, if it has a propeller, it's fine. Civilian, if it doesn't, it has to be at Gary or Scampton. The ground crew section. All ground crew have to follow tower ground instructions, so they must follow the controller's instructions. Baggage vehicles, buses and airstays must remain on the service roads or on the ramp, which is the bit where the gates are, unless they are servicing an aircraft. So they must stay on the roads or close to the terminal wall unless they're going out to service an aircraft at a gate. They cannot service an aircraft on a taxiway. It has to be in a gate or a stand. Following vehicles are only allowed to enter the taxiways and help an aircraft if the pilot or controller requests it and the controller allows it. The follow me truck must follow and read back the taxi instructions given by the controller. Fuel trucks are to remain close to the terminal and on the ramp and on the roads, just as those ones up there. Fire trucks and fuel trucks are only allowed to enter the taxiways in the event of an emergency, and that's controller permitting. If ground permits ground or tower, depending on who's controlling ground at that point, permits fire trucks to do a water salute, they must remain on the ramp. They cannot enter the taxiways or the grass area to do a water salute. If you need to communicate with a fellow ground crew, only use Roblox chat. The ground VC is for the ground controller, not for the ground crew. The ground crew must always be in the VC so they can hear the ground or the tower, but they do not communicate in that VC. They only use Roblox chat. Similarly, aircraft, if you are requesting the services of ground crew, do it through Roblox chat. The marshallers section. If you don't know what marshallers are, they're the people who stand at gates and guide aircraft in to make sure they're aligned with the jetway correctly. and stopping at the correct point. So marshals are only to be present at gates or stands near the marked end of the taxiway line for that gate or stand. They can't go onto the taxiway to guide people in, they have to stay at the gate. The marshallers must be in the same VC as the aircraft they're marshalling, but once again they can't talk in that VC and they can only use Roblox chat to communicate. And the marshal tool shouldn't be misused. For example, using the animations as emotes. There's one with the arms flapping up and down and people love to run around with that one. Don't. Public server, if you feel the urge to do that, go for it, not in ATC24. And the marshal tool cannot be used unless you are actually marshalling an aircraft, so you can't just use it for no reason. And we are so close to the end now, so close. Just some extra miscellaneous information. If you suspect a member is new to ATC24 or they're struggling, please try and help them rather than making them feel unwelcome by shouting at them. Just be a nice person. We're all new once. We're all learning once. So show some kindness and make the world a better place. If a rule or multiple rules are broken, you can report it in the reports channel, or ping an online member an online staff member if it's very urgent. Do not use the emergency ping for. In fact, I don't even think this server has an emergency ping. But obviously, don't. If there is one, don't use an emergency ping. Goodness me, I can't speak. Don't use the emergency ping because it won't be a proper emergency. Charts for all the airports can be found in ATC24 charts. Lots of links in there. I like charts. I'll just leave it at that. Recording and uploading the VCs is permitted, and that includes streaming. Oh my goodness! I like him. Anyway, So people are allowed to record and upload the VCs online, so if you don't want your voice on the internet, don't speak, use Roblox chat. People can also stream the VCs, that's fine. They have permission to do that, so join at your own risk. If the server is full, you can join this VC to wait if you would like. There's also a music bot that can join this VC, so you can play some tunes while you wait. You can join the actual VCs while you're waiting in order to listen in, but you shouldn't be speaking while you're waiting. To join the server, the links are in there, as we've discussed. General Discord rules apply, of course. Bypassing mutes, bans, or channel restrictions through the use of alt accounts will result in a ban on all accounts. Don't try to circumvent or find loopholes in our rules, or try to imply rule-breaking content without literally breaking the rules. Use common sense. Common sense is important. Don't try and find loopholes. Follow the rules, and we'll all have a good time. Punishments are dealt with on a case-by-case basis and at the staff team's discretion. Do not argue, fight, or partake in any other activities which may escalate the situation. So if you have been warned by a staff member for whatever, don't argue with them in chat because that clogs it. If you really have to argue, do it in DMs if you really have to. Of course, we can warn you for just arguing more and just for being a pain. So think about it carefully. Like I say, the only way that a warn or a ban will be revoked is if you can provide proof that you did in fact not break the rules. If your argument is, oh well, there was so-and-so other doing it before, I've seen other people breaking this rule before, then you're just admitting to it, basically. We can only warn what we see or what people provide us with evidence of. So if you're reporting people, provide evidence of them breaking the rules. We try to get as many people as we can. We don't appreciate rule breakers. We don't like them. No one does. They ruin the game for everyone. Don't be one. So if you have any extra questions, then you can DM me or ask in chat. I'm always... my DMs are always open and I'm in chat quite a lot answering questions, and I'll be happy to do so. I hope this helped. I hope this helps you understand the rules a bit more. Sorry it took so long. There are a lot of rules here, and I went into quite a lot of detail, probably a lot of unneeded detail. But anyway, have a nice rest of your day. Have a good time on ATC24, and I'll see you in the skies.